Concordia is a great example of a game that's easy to learn, but also one that will leave you with some agonizingly hard decisions. You need to understand both short and long-term strategy to do well at this game. In this video, we'll offer you 10 really important strategies you need to learn today, here on Legendary Tactics. This video will focus on general strategy for the game, but we should also point out that the strategies will change depending on how many players are in the game and what approaches your opponents take. But there are some good general principles, and we'll touch on them here. Number 1, overarching strategy. One of the most important concepts in Concordia is to be a generalist and find balance. There are some people that like to specialize more narrowly, but for a new player, trying to accomplish a bit of everything will generally give you pretty good results. So what do we mean by this? Well, you should spread to every province. That way you'll benefit anytime any player activates a province. Move to one of each kind of city. This diversifies your resources, giving you flexibility. From a big picture perspective, here are the goals you want to be aiming for. Place lots of houses. 12 to 15 is your endgame goal. Balance your building with your card acquisition. By the end of the game, you should have 14 to 16 cards. In the early game, you'll be focusing on building your engine and extending your infrastructure. Shift your focus to buying more cards in the mid to late game. Number 2, your first move. Efficiency is the name of the game in Concordia, and putting together synergies with your cards is going to create that efficiency and win you games. Optimal play is about sequencing your personality cards properly for the best results that you can accomplish. Play them in the best order and at the right time. Though the timing changes from game to game depending on what your opponents do, there are still some important foundational concepts you need to know. Your first move will likely be to play the architect. Whenever you build, on the first turn or otherwise, be sure to build at least 2 houses at once. Early on, you should consider building a city to get access to brick, as brick is required to build on a lot of the cities on the board. Alternatively, you can buy these with the Mercator, if you have to, but it isn't a bad idea to lock down the source of it as well. So a decent first move is to build 2 houses, 1 brick and 1 wine, as the wine helps with card purchases, or to sell with Mercator at a decent price. This is true, of course, if you can get there first, so the build is affordable. If others open with the architect, you can use your diplomat to do the same and get 2 buildings down. After you've expanded a bit, your gameplay will begin to include grabbing important cities that your opponents are aiming for, thereby driving up the cost for them. Another intriguing and unconventional first move, especially on larger maps, is to play the Tribune right away. This will give you another colonist, and therefore another movement point, allowing you to reach parts of the map that the other players will not be able to get to immediately. This also allows you to be able to use your diplomat on other players' first turn architect. Number 3, ranking the specialists. The specialist cards can be very useful, but typically only when you have the infrastructure in place to benefit fully from them. Don't make buying them a priority in the early game unless you can grab a farmer and or a mason cheaply. Let's take a look at the specialist cards in the order of strength. Number 1, the farmer. It's the cheapest to maximize, and the farms help you build in 2 different types of cities, and also with colonists. Number 2 is the mason. This helps give you a brick infusion for building more houses quickly. Number 3, it's a fairly middle-of-the-road card. The Smith helps you build in some cities, it helps you buy some cards, and it helps you pay for a colonist. It's an okay card. It's not the best, though. Number 4 would be the Weaver. I don't find that the cloth strategy is usually a winner because it's very expensive and time-consuming, so you don't get a lot of value there. And number 5, my least favorite card is the Vintner. It's too hard to benefit in a way similar to the Weaver. Now, if you have different thoughts on this, or if you want to reinforce the tier list that I've made here, please put those thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear what you're thinking about this. If you enjoy board game strategy videos like this, please stab the like button. And if you're getting value from these ideas, please join our community by subscribing now. We'd love to have you back. Number 4. So, what's the best action? If you had to choose, what do you think is the best action in the game? Leave a comment below with your thoughts on this. I would argue that it's the Senator. This allows you to buy more cards, and ultimately more cards give you not only more flexibility and choice in actions, but also victory points at the end of the game. It's not a stretch to say that at the end of the game, whoever has the most cards wins. So make sure your Senator and or your Diplomat action do the same in every Tribune cycle. It lets you buy 1 or 2 cards, and you should always buy 2. And don't let your opponent get away with acquiring one of the great cards cheaply, like the Consul or the 5 Mercator if you can help it. Snap them up while you can. Don't use the Senator too early in the game though, as it may cost you resources that you really need to expand on your first few cards, and that aren't easily replaced without some infrastructure built first. Once you have some houses in place, buy cards early and buy cards often. Number 5, trading. Trading with a Mercator is a bit tricky. On one hand, it's great to be able to sell expensive goods and then buy exactly what you need to pull off a big play. But there's something that seems slow and inelegant about it. For example, it might be more useful and efficient to use colonist cards to make a quick buck if that's what you're after, and then use the Mercator purely to buy what you need. So I'm not sure if the best use of this card is to sell some goods and then buy others. But certainly there's some flexibility that this card affords you that can be invaluable in the right situation. Generally, this means that you're going to sell expensive goods in your storehouse, like wine and cloth. You'll buy cheaper materials that you need for buying a bunch of houses, and then you'll pocket the difference. And there's nothing wrong with that. Number 6, the Prefect. The best way to use the Prefect card is to not use it at all. Get others to play it and to activate a province where you have houses and cities, and you get the reward without having to take an action. But of course, you can also benefit from playing it to either reap the rewards of resetting the inactive provinces or to gain a bonus regional good. There are exceptions to the rule, but don't waste this card in a region where you aren't present in any cities unless you feel you really have to. Sometimes you'll want to play this card to reactivate the provinces and cash in. It seems that this becomes worth it when the coin level hits 8 or more. This can be even more effective when you see your opponent could use the money for buildings, as it will be a hindrance. Number 7, the Diplomat. The Diplomat is a card that is underestimated by most players, but it can make your hand a much better one, especially if you're playing a 4-player game and you have your pick of a few different cards to use. If you get a chance to get a second Diplomat card, it's absolutely worth it, especially at higher player counts. Remember, this card does become less effective the fewer players they are. It limits your choices. One really great card to copy is the Better Merchant card, or sometimes the Architect. It's generally going to be used so you can keep your copy back in reserve for later use. Number 8, Summarizing the Deities. In the endgame, the scoring will be measured by the number of cards featuring different deities on them and how they match up with the network you've built. Vespa, which gives you a victory point per 10 coins you have, is the least valuable deity and will never win you the game as a standalone strategy. It's a nice supplement to your score, but nothing more. Mars gives you victory points from colonists at a rate of 2 victory points per colonist. This is a pretty great point builder. Minerva cards have a good on them, and they reward houses built in cities that produce that type of good. There's only 1 Minerva card per good, but if managed well, these can do reasonably well on victory points. Mercurius cards multiply types of goods produced in cities where you have houses by 2 victory points. Since there's 5 goods in the game, the maximum is 10 victory points per card there. Just remember to keep this in mind. How many points can you possibly earn from each card? The Saturnus cards multiply the number of provinces in which you have a trading post at a rate of 1 point per province per card. Because there are a lot of these cards available, they can do really well provided you buy a bunch of them and you've expanded well across the game board. Jupiter cards multiply the number of cities in which you have a house that produce something other than brick at a rate of 1 victory point per city per card. There's lots of these available, so you can get a lot of points provided you plan ahead. Number 9, the Tribune. It's absolutely critical to get the timing right on this card, as this card is essentially a missed turn, even though you generally do get money for posting it, and a colonist if you can afford it. When should you play it? Well, don't play it unless you can buy a colonist. The colonists add to your range of movement with the Architect, they free up spots in your storehouse, and they can give you points in the end with the Mars deity. You can certainly get a colonist card to help you place more on the board and not just in Roma, but having this benefit with the Tribune should be maximized as well. If you can limit playing the Tribune to 3 or 4 times in a game, you'll likely be very competitive. Ideally, you want to play out your entire hand. If you've bought cards well and played your cards in the right sequence, you'll never waste a card by not maximizing its rewards. Number 10, the End Game. Being the one to end the game is obviously a good move, as it wins you the Concordia card, which is worth 7 additional victory points to you. I especially like ending the game by building all your houses, as it sets up more potential scoring for you in so many ways. If you're playing 2-player, you might consider a rush strategy, which is to build the cities as cheaply and quickly as possible. And then buy the cards that will either give you resources quickly, like the specialists, or that will reward you with victory points. Time the ending of the game well, and victory will be yours. If you'd like to learn the basics of how to play this game, please check out our tutorial walkthrough, and thanks so much for your time, and best of luck mastering this game and dominating your friends at Concordia.